live, what this all is going to mean, if I can ever have children. So all these fears and questions and dealing with my own mortality really came up for me, because before I was fine, I was healthy, I never really thought about death that much. So that's when I was faced with my own death and working through it. And what happened was that I was kind of afraid to take the medication, because I heard a lot of scary things about the medication, that people are fine. Once they take them, they can have an allergic reaction and die, or so I had all these fears of doing the treatment, and I avoided it. So what I did is just do visualization and positive thinking, and of course eating healthy, going to the gym, and all of these things, which helped. But after about 5 years, my health declined, and my my T cells lowered, and I was getting very close to having AIDS. And then I really got scared. And so in my mind, it was either I take the treatment and I die, or I don't take it and I die anyways, because the virus is going to take over. And so obviously it's not that black and white, but in my mind, that's how I felt. So I went through this whole crisis of somehow I'm going to die either way, and I'm trying to prepare myself. And I read all these books about the afterlife, about astral projection, out-of-body experiences, a lot about near-death experiences, which is very helpful and comforting to me. And in the end, I decided to take the treatment, and everything was fine, and I have been healthy ever since. I've been doing very well. And I felt after that I had this new chance on life, this a second chance, because before my whole mind was about worrying about surviving, basically. And now I had this second chance on life, and I wanted to do something with it. So I was also searching for how I could give back to the universe, how I could, especially with my interest in metaphysics and afterlife. And that's kind of how I got to the IAC, the International Academy of Consciousness, which is a nonprofit organization which teaches out-of-body experiences. I took courses there and became a volunteer, and eventually I also became an instructor, a teacher of that. But in the process of training and of learning, I thought, all this information we have about out-of-body experiences, about near-death experiences, about reincarnation even. There's so much research in this information. I was also very interested in these studies, and I found that there are a lot of studies, that there is a lot of evidence for the afterlife, and in many different ways, and that not a lot of people know about it. Maybe the people here in our group, and some have read books about that, but the general, let's say I would go to my colleagues, they have never heard of an out-of-body experience, or they might believe in an afterlife because of their religious beliefs, or because of, it sounds like a great idea, but they don't know that there's actually really good studies. And so that's how I had the idea to write a book about kind of compiling all this information and putting it into a book for people who are facing death, or facing someone close to them going through death, or losing someone, that they can rely and have this compact version of the studies that exist, and that is not just based on a belief, but that there is a lot of information and a lot we can do to explore it. And if you have listened to near-death experiences, they're so amazing, they're so beautiful, and and you listen to it and you think like, wow, this is incredible. I wish I could have that experience, to have that proof. But obviously nobody wants to risk their life to have a near-death experience, right? And so it's not something that we can try to learn or that we can try to do. However, the out-of-body experience, which is very closely related to the near-death experience, is something that we can do, and it's something that we can do while we're being healthy. It's something that we can train, that we can learn to go out of body, and that allows us to explore these non-physical realms, these non-physical dimensions. And then that opens us up to a huge range of possibilities of what we can do there. So one is the obviously visiting loved ones that have passed over already, that we can meet outside of the body. It's not always as easy as it sounds in doing this, so I can answer some questions more later, but it's definitely possible. Also, having contact with our spiritual guides, with our spiritual mentors, we can do that outside of the body, and we can meet them face to face and get some input. We can, one of the big things is just having this different perspective, right? So here inside the body, I am Ines, I'm in this body, I'm alive so many years, and everything focused around this physical experience. And then sometimes, for all of us, it's hard to think as ourselves as a spiritual being, or that there's something beyond that, or that there's another non-physical realm. And once we have this experience of going out of body, it's like this waking up, this realization, even if it's a very, very simple experience, you don't even go far. Let's say you just lift out of your body and you stay in your bedroom, but you look at your body lying in bed, you realize, okay, this is Ines over there in the bed, and I can be here, still conscious, still aware, still having sensation, sensing, understanding. I still remember my history, all of this, and experience the separation. And then that gives us kind of the shift of, okay, I'm much more than just my physical body. And I think that's the most important, I guess, reason why we learn out-of-body experience, why we teach classes on out-of-body experiences, and why it would be good for anybody to try to have them. So it's not just something that you read in a book or that you hear about, but that you can actually go and see it for yourself, because the best proof is if we can go and experience this versus somebody coming to tell us, well, this is how it is, and that's how, how things work in the afterlife. But wouldn't it be so much better if we could go ourselves and explore that? So that's the whole reason, also a big reason for me in training, learning the out-of-body experiences. And of course, there's many more benefits. For example, remembering some of your past lives, because you're in a state, you're kind of out of your physical brain. And when you're out of your physical brain, you use the astral body, the non-physical body that has been doing all these incarnations from life to life. And when you're in that state, it's much easier to remember your past lives or even see glimpses of the future. And so being in that state, again, it's kind of getting that meta experience of yourself. And instead of seeing everything as the little part of your physical life, you get to kind of step out and see the big picture. And that's also a big help for us to understand ourselves, our connections, our karmic connections to the people in our life, why we struggle with some people, why we have this strong, deep love and connection to other people right from the start that we just met, and how that's all connected. So also of course, the ability to to travel outside of the body and to do things that we can't really do inside the body. So for example, we can go into space, we can travel into the deep ocean, we can explore a species of fish or life there that nobody has ever seen because we can't physically go there. We could go into the sun, into an iceberg. I could go to Paris, for example, now, and just fly around and check something out, or go to a new place that I've never been. And all that's also possible outside of the body, which is more of the fun, the fun, touristy kind of out-of-body experiences. And like Wendy was saying, right now that we're stuck in the house, that's a good opportunity to try to travel outside of the body and explore those other realms and places. And like she was saying, also for prisoners, it's a great opportunity to get out of their prison cell. But there's a lot of different energetic things also related to it. So the dimensions that we go to, there's a different kind of frequency or range of dimensions that we resonate with, that we are more attracted with. And not everything is beautiful and light and love, but there are also dimensions that you could say are like lower dimensions, that there's a whole different range of places, which I explain more in detail in my book. But I'm just saying that because, for example, the prisoner that's going out of body might also go to some places that relate to his karma that are not so pleasant. So I would probably urge them to be a little more careful in trying to do that. And let me also share maybe one or two of my out-of-body experiences that I had. When I was younger, I had them spontaneously, and I didn't quite know what it was exactly, but I remember that I would leave my body at night and I would kind of just go float up on the ceiling. Sometimes I would just sit on the closet and look down because I didn't know I could go past my room, but I would go up and float around. And some nights I would actually fly through the window and into the neighborhood. I would go from roof to roof, and it was dark. But then I would just go up to the upper floors and look through the windows, and I thought it was really fun. I thought it was a really fun dream. But I always sensed that I could tell the difference between the dream and the out-of-body experience in terms of the awareness that I had, and how real it felt. And then there was one significant experience that kind of where I knew, okay, there's something to this astral projection. So I was like maybe 15, and I woke up in the morning, probably after going out to dance or something. I was very tired, and I had to go to the bathroom, and but I was too tired, so I didn't want to go, so I just stayed there. I kind of resisted the urge. And then at some point, I did get up, and I walked through my bedroom door, and I got to the bedroom door, and I tried to open the doorknob, the handle, and push it down to get out. And my hand would just go through it. It was like I was a ghost, and my hand would pass through the door handle, and I was confused. I'm like, what's going on? And I kept doing that, and just my hand would pass through the handle. So I ended up going back to bed, and then I woke up again, for real, you could say, with my body, and then I got up and went to the bathroom. But I realized that it wasn't a dream, because even if it was a dream, I would have gone to the door and opened the door, because it's a dream. So there's something very different about that, and just that sensation of my hand passing through the door handle. That was definitely a proof for me that astral projection there's something to it, and I ended up reading more books about it, trying to practice it more. Now, this was all before ISC and before the other training when I was younger, but I kind of never really questioned it that much because I had these experiences. And so that one convinced me. And then I have another, you could say, interesting experience that I like to share. That's also in my book. And that was already later. I was, I don't know, my late 20s. And I got home. I had my cell phone with me, and then I got home and I couldn't find my cell phone. It was gone. I had lost it. So I looked everywhere. I went back outside. I went to the car. I looked inside the car. I looked in front of the house, and I searched everywhere for this phone. I couldn't find it. And so, as you know, the cell phone is something very personal. It's like losing an arm. It's like very important. So I was thinking about it a lot, and worrying about where it is. But then I got so exhausted, I thought, let me go take a nap. So I laid down in bed, but my mind was still actively thinking about my phone. So what happened was that I ended up lifting out of the body and started floating. And I started floating outside, and I thought, oh, let me go find the phone. And because outside of the body, everything is based on energetic connections, I had a strong energetic connection to my phone. So it's almost like it pulled me into that direction. And I started floating outside of the apartment and onto the grass, and I was kind of hovering right above the grass, and I could see my phone laying there in the grass. And I was like, oh, it's here, and it was very clear. And normally I would go and explore more and have fun once I'm outside of the body, but I thought, well, I know where it is. I have to go back to my body and have to get up and get it. So I did go back. I flew back to my body. I woke up and I ended up going to the exact place, and that's where my phone was. So it was not imagination or anything else. It was really real for me. So I have some more. I don't know how far you want to go, or if you have some questions.
I think we're going to have lots of questions, Ines. I think perhaps the thing that a lot of people want to know is, well, where do I start? If I want to have an out-of-body experience, what can I do to prepare, and where should I go to learn?
Yes. Well, I would recommend Mosaic Wellness and Education. I can put the link here later when we chat for you. They have a course called OBE Fundamentals, and it's starting April 25th. So these are the basic for OBE. I volunteered for them, but currently, since I'm also 9 months pregnant and everything is changing in my life, so I haven't been able to do much of what I used to do before. But my favorite mentors are there teaching these classes. And the next one is April 25 and 26. So I would start with that. And obviously, maybe read some books and get into the mindset of it. So there are techniques for leaving the body. There are techniques using visualization. There are techniques using relaxation. There are techniques using breathing. And there isn't like a technique that's universal that works for everyone. But usually there's different types of people that, for example, an athlete who has a lot of lung capacity, for them the breathing technique might work the best. For people who are imaginative, or creative, they sometimes prefer the visualization techniques because it's easier for them to visualize. And in my book, I don't have so much the out-of-body techniques. It's more about the research on afterlife. But one of my favorite books is Luis Minero's book, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience. And that one is has all the techniques, all the how-to. And but obviously I can also give you some tips. So very important is really to, even if you want to try it tonight, for those where it is the night's still coming, or tomorrow night, it's just having that kind of that mindset and kind of disconnecting ourselves mentally from the physical, because normally we're, we worry about our lives, we're very connected energetically to our physical lives, and we worry about the bills, and right now we worry about corona and financial, how we're going to survive this crisis and all of these things. But if we can kind of go into a state where we distance ourselves a little bit from that and think of ourselves more as a spirit, and then as you go to sleep, try to separate your consciousness a little bit from, this is my body now going to sleep, but my consciousness, my awareness can stay awake, because they don't have to be, when your body sleeps, your consciousness doesn't have to sleep. It can actually go out, explore, have experiences. And so sometimes it's, the tricky part is also making that shift from, okay, I'm going to sleep, everything is off, shut off, and then we become unconscious. And what we want to do is train a little bit against that, so that we can realize, okay, my body is sleeping, my body is shutting off, but my awareness can stay awake and my awareness can explore. And then there are energy exercises that you can do. For example, moving your energies up and down the body. I explain this technique also in my book. But basically what you do is you try to, it's not just visualization, but you want to actually feel it. And I don't know if Nelson, who was here, already explained the technique to you, but basically you want to feel your energy up here on your head, and then slowly start moving it down your body. Slowly move it down through your whole body, and you want to feel the sensation of the energies moving. So it's not like a light or visualizing a light, but you actually want to kind of feel it a little bit. And that sometimes takes some time and practice to feel it. And you go to the bottom of your feet, and then you start going back up. And you kind of do this energy movement. And then you want to get a little bit slower and create this resonant state, the vibrational state. And that usually helps to almost like loosen up the glue between your physical body and your astral body. So they're, for most of us, pretty tightly connected. So when we run the energies this way, it's easier to get more flexibility here, and then it's easier to leave the body.
I actually had a couple of them. One was the day that my brother-in-law died from pancreatic cancer, and he was very ill at the end. He wasn't able to travel to see the new property we had purchased, 40 acres, and we had left another place, and it was a huge thing, and he would have loved the new property, but I felt him kind of fly over and see it. Wow. I just sensed him doing that the day, and then I found out he had passed at the same time. Is that an example of astral projection, or is that different? Did he made the point to journey to see it before he left this dimension, I think.
Yeah, it could also be after death communication, where he had already passed, but he was in his astral body still. And from what we know from our research, usually we spend the first few days, even after we pass, to go around visiting people, saying goodbyes, or doing things like checking out the property or checking on something. So that would make a lot of sense. If he flew out of body before he died, which is also possible, then it would be more of an out of body experience.
Okay.
But it's very closely related. So it depends exactly the moment of his death and when he was there.
Oh,
But it was
yes.
an after death communication, but it's very similar, only in one state. With the out of body experience, he still has his silver cord connected.
Okay.
And the ability to come back and live. And in the after death communication, he's already passed. The silver cord is disconnected, but he can still be close to us.
Yeah.
Hi. I was just wondering, I think I may have had an out-of-body experience. I don't know whether I had or not. I thought I was asleep at the time. I'd gone to bed as normal that night, and we'd been doing some family research, and found some information about my great-grandmother that we'd been looking for quite a few years. And I had a dream, and she was in the dream, but there was also several other family members there, and she said to me, "Thank you so much for finding that out, like you thank you for finding that out." And then I just remember having this overwhelming sort of sense of peace and not wanting to leave. And I remember saying to her, "I don't want to go back." And she turned around to me and she said, "You have to go back, you don't belong here."
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know whether that was a dream or I don't know what it was. I was just wondering if
Let me ask you, did it feel to you like an ordinary dream?
No.
Probably not, right? Because usually when we have these significant dreams, especially in these cases where we meet someone who's passed on, or we get some information, and it's sometimes very clear, very almost like we're even more alert, more present in a way, and then that's usually an indicator for what's the dream and what's a real out of body experience. Now, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure, but it sounds a lot like it. Even her thanking you, even getting the information, and other people being there. So that's actually pretty common too, for that to happen.
Yes, hi Ines.
Hi.
I'm just curious if you've had any experience with shamanic journeying.
Shamanic journey.
Yes.
I studied it through the metaphysical sciences studies that I did, but I haven't had experience myself, or haven't really gotten into shamanic.
Okay.
But I do see similarities, or I think that I guess there are different types and techniques, but there are some, for example, where they dig a hole and they create a space, or they go into a cave and then they do certain, they go into a trance state, basically to go out of body. So it's kind of like a sensory deprivation, going into the cave or digging this hole where they stay a few days, and sometimes not eating or going into this altered state. I think all of this promotes out of body experiences. So I think that especially back in the day, they would use that also for out of body experiences.
I was just wondering, what is the difference between astral projection and out of body experiences?
It's the same. It's just a different
Same
name.
thing?
Yes.
Now, the other day, I was sleeping and I was jarred awake by, it felt like my body, like something hit my body. Do you think that was like me coming back? It was almost like I crashed into myself.
Yes, that's I'm trying to remember the term, but yes, it's that sensation that sometimes, actually many of you here may have had that experience where you're dreaming that you're falling, and then suddenly you almost like you fall into bed and you wake up with like a jerk awake, like as if you actually just hit the bed, or you just got pulled into the body with the strong force, and you feel this startling. And yeah, that's pretty common, and that's an indicator that you might have been out of the body, because some nights Actually, at night we always separate a little bit, maybe just an inch or two, maybe not much. We don't really notice it. But then there might be some nights where you disconnect a little further, and let's say you go up and you float up on the close to the ceiling, and you might not be aware of it. But when something happens to your body, let's say your partner bumps into you, or your dog barks, or you hear like a loud noise that wakes up your body very quickly, it's like your astral body's here and it goes like smash right back into the body, and you feel that sensation. So that's one of the common sensations of returning to the body.
I've had the falling, but this was like the reverse. This was like, instead of falling, something hit me. It was like it was a reverse thing. Like I was, it wasn't like the falling. I mean, it was the same type of jerk, but it was like something slammed into me. It was weird. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Like an energy or a mass, or?
I don't know. It just like something hit me, like, and I startled, like you say, I jumped, but it wasn't a falling. It was more like a smash into me type thing. It was weird, very weird. It was recent.
Well, it could be in that case too that you're feeling something was hitting your astral body and you could feel it, but you couldn't see it physically with your eyes, but energetically you could feel it.
Thank you. Could I firstly say thank you to Wendy and Victor and Karen for doing what you're doing, and particularly at a time like this. It's really, we're very, very lucky to have this ability. And I've been thinking today that if we could do out-of-body traveling, wouldn't it be nice if we could go and visit our loved ones who we can't physically go and see now? But I don't know if you can do that, or if you can. What about the privacy of the people at the other end? Do they want people just dropping in?
I would definitely try to go visit them. Privacy outside of the body, there isn't really as much privacy as maybe we would like to, but basically we do have some boundaries. It's kind of like a bubble where not everybody can go through. But if it's, let's say, you're a family member that they would welcome you, then I would think it's certainly okay to go visit them. And one way to do it is basically using your energetic connection with them. So as you go to sleep at night, I don't know which member it is, but let's say it's your mother is in the hospital. You think of your mother and you think of the way she is, her smile, how she jokes, and her whole being, and you try to hold that focus of her in your mind and the intention to go visit her. And then could be anywhere in the world, but based on that connection is how you will be able to find her. Like, let's say somebody is lost and you don't know where they are, you can still find them outside the body because we have this energetic connection that connects us. But if you know the hospital and you've been there, then it helps because you can visualize the hospital room and visualize her there. So all of that can help us to get us there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a strong intention and try to have that the last thought in your mind as you fall asleep.
Yeah, so it's rather like the spirit connection. You're on a similar vibration at that particular time to make that connection.
Yes, because you might even go out of body. That has happened to me when I was training, but then you end up, I don't know, in some other place or in another dimension. You totally forget that you wanted to go visit your mother, and you're kind of distracted by whatever is going on there. So the focus is very important to even outside of the body, to have that intention to keep your focus on your mom. So that
Thank you.
Out of the body, you actually end up going there.
Good evening, Ines. My question is an OBE very similar, or can it be compared with channeling, where the spirit that you're channeling actually takes you to a place, but at the same time you actually see in the spirit as if you're an observer, and he's telling you where he's actually at, so that you direct your gears to where he is and you see him? Is that it? Can that be? Is that similar to an OBE, or is it totally different?
No, there's also the possibility of having our spirit guide or spirit mentor, or whatever you want to call it, actually helping us. So if we have a strong, especially if we want to do assistance, like let's say she wants to go visit her mom and send her energy, make her feel better. Sometimes that helps us get there. And also there are spiritual guides of her and of ours that try to make the connection, that then help us out of body and guide us there. That certainly happens too.
So if it's your first time of doing this, and you get a panic attack of how do I get back? How do you actually get back?
Yes, I know that's a very common fear. What if I get lost, or what if I don't come back? But we don't see that as a reality. I mean, even our students, our teacher, we go to our body all the time. We have such a strong connection to our physical body that we'll always come back, probably even before we want to. And that's based on the silver cord, which will pull us back eventually if we need energy or if we need to wake up for some reason. So you cannot get lost. The only reason this might happen is if people are actually physically ill or mentally ill, that they get into some realm, they get confused or anything like that. But most of us who are healthy will always come back to the body. So you never have to worry about that. And you can actually thinking of our body will bring us back to the body too. So let's say you're somewhere, you just think of your body and it'll take you back to the body.
Thank you, Ines, for speaking with us today. Can you speak about that silver cord? Like, I don't know where I got this notion, but if the silver cord breaks, what happens? And can it break?
Yes. Yeah, the silver cord is also an energetic cord. It's non-physical mostly. It attaches at the base of our neck, but sometimes you might see it going out of the belly or out of different places. You can actually go, if you're out of body, grab behind your neck and feel it, and it's like pulsing with energy. But it is non-physical, so it'll go through walls, it won't tangle up. Nobody can cut it, nothing happens to it. The only time it disconnects is when we pass away and the energetic connection loses. It's the decay of the body and then we lose the connection. But other than that, nothing can hurt it.
Thank you.
Curious about people that experience the event where they actually feel like they're frozen when they wake up in the morning and they can't move. Can you talk about that and what's happening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so-called sleep paralysis, where people they already feel like they're in the body, they're conscious, but they can't move, the muscles don't move yet. And so from our understanding is that it's very likely that in that situation you have already disconnected a little bit from the physical body, and then you can imagine that the body and the astral body, they are connected by these little tiny energetic connections, which you might know from acupuncture, and then as you get further away from the physical body, these tiny connections, they group together and they form the silver cord. And then once they're still tiny connections, they're still connected to the muscles, and you can move the muscles. Once you get further away and it creates the silver cord, the muscles are basically in the state where you don't move the muscles, and then you just explore with the astral body. So sometimes you do come back into the body, and you're still kind of with the silver cord, and those little connections haven't been made to the muscles yet. And then that's usually the state where people experience the sleep paralysis. And that's usually very scary, or people think something has happened, they died, or they get scared or freak out. But if that happens to you, or if that ever happens to you again, actually we will make the connection eventually. Might take 30, 40 seconds. And one way to initiate the connection is to move a small part of your body. So for example, try to move your pinky finger or your tongue or your eyelids or something like a tiny muscle, and then usually that helps to connect us. Mm-hmm. But what you can also do instead of wanting to come back is go out of the body, because you're already more out of the body than inside, and then that's the best way to have an OBE from. So I would recommend to go out, explore, and then come back to the body, and you probably should have a smooth entry.
Thanks for having us here. Thanks for organizing this. I have a question. It's in regards to when you're asleep and you can hear everything around you, but you're not awake. And you wanted to wake up, but you can't. You just can hear everything that's happening around you, but you can't do anything about it. Is that some part of leaving the body? And I don't know how to define that. I just had a couple experiences like that.
It sounds a little bit similar to the sleep paralysis, only that also when we're a little more extra physical or outside of the body than inside, also our senses expand. So it's like sometimes we have hyper hearing where we hear conversations that are far away, we hear more clear and tense than we normally do with our ears. But I think it's just that your body was in a very deep rest, deep state. And I'm not sure why you want to wake up exactly, but I have had these experiences too, especially practicing OBE, that I would just go into a deep state of relaxation, and maybe I would even like fall asleep for a little bit and then wake up again. I could hear everything, but I couldn't move, or sometimes I didn't want to move. It could be related to the sleep paralysis.
I was wondering, there was also something like remote viewing, and to me it's like clear viewing, but you go out of your body and you say, I look around, and would there be a similarity in it, or would you see a difference, that there are two separate things?
Yes, they are using similar senses, but they are different things. So the outer body experience is you actually, the body goes into a deep sleep state, and you do disconnect from the body, and you actually go with your astral body to that location, for example, and you can interact with the location. You can, let's say I go to my mom's house, I can go walk in front of the closet, I can walk around, I can see everything there. And so that would be the outer body experience. But the remote viewing is kind of using the senses of the astral body and displacing our sense of vision to the location. But we are still in the body or close to the body, but we can still, it's kind of like superpowers. Our senses are not limited as much as they are inside the body. So we can still use the senses of the astral body and displace them. Our hearing we can displace, but also our vision. So let's say I'm still in my bedroom and I'm in this altered state. I can use the senses of my astral body to say I want to see my mom's living room, and I can see her magazine there or whatever she's doing using just the vision, but I'm not actually there. So they are related, but the difference is one we're actually there and one is we're just seeing it. Does that make sense?
Yes, and some, yeah. I was wondering if it would be sort of next level to go really astral traveling when you do remote viewing, and then the next level would be traveling too. But I'm not sure how it works. Sometimes I can have a remote view and go somewhere and have look around, or but that is for me with my mediumistic skills that I use. So yeah, just yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think
And like
really
Bridget.
the mystic skills that we have, a lot of it comes from the energetic body that's more connected to everything, or the astral body that's more connected to everything. So maybe when you do it, you just try to see there, and you're not really intending to actually go to the place, and then you stay more with the remote viewing. But you could also go there. I would say it's easier to do them remote viewing, maybe because there's less things that will bring you back inside the body, and also sometimes it's harder to go out to distance yourself from the body than just taking the vision. But any kind of psychic sense, also feeling like objects, like psychometry, where you take an object and you feel the energies of it, and you feel would belong to what it relates to. All of these are abilities really of the astral body.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we need protection when we travel out of our body from our spirit guides or energetically, or do they automatically, are we automatically protected by our guides or guardian angels or energy?
I would say they're not automatically there all the time because they're very busy helping a lot of people. But also, it's not necessary that they come with us all the time or that they need to protect us. I think what protects us the most is kind of our resonance field. So if you imagine you have in your daily life a certain normal level of ethics, of kindness, of, we all have our good and bad sides, obviously, but as a general, we have a certain vibration. So you could translate that into when you go out of body, you resonate with dimensions that are more closely resonating with who you are, or even higher. So we usually, when we go out of body, we skip the lower dimensions. We go straight to more neutral ones, or sometimes even higher ones that feel positive, that are good, where we learn and explore, and we don't need so much protection. Now, when we do assistance outside of the body, it's also possible, like people go help the homeless or people in need. They're not maybe always mentally stable or healthy, or they smell, but we go there anyway to help them, right? So normally we wouldn't go to Skid Row, but if we want to bring them food, we go there. So that same can happen outside of the body. There are dimensions where our souls or spirits or people in need that we can go to assist. That's probably a little bit more complex to explain, but then we could actually have the intention and go there. But our protection, which I would think in your case too, is that 99% of your out-of-body experiences will be to dimensions that resonate with who you are. And then it's not that scary. There's
right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Ines, when you're traveling, do physical people look very different from spirit people, or do we just look different in general?
Do physical people look different? No, not necessarily. I mean, that it's one difference is when you go out of body and you let's say you float. I go out of body and I flow around in the neighborhood outside of the street, and I can see physical people there, right? So they just look like normal people to me. But what I have experienced once, which was interesting, that in the morning I had an out-of-body experience, and I would see people floating, but with their silver cord. So they were still sleeping, but they were projected, they were unconscious. And sometimes even they had their dog with them, because they probably go out every morning and they walk their dog. So somehow they were already projected outside with their dogs and their silver cords. And then that's how you know by the silver cord that there are they're physical people, but they're outside of the body right now. And then there are projections where you go to a non-physical dimension where everybody is non-physical. So you don't even see the silver cord. It's just like you and I, and and they feel solid. I mean, they don't feel like a ghost, and they just feel like you and I.
Okay.
But the difference is that one is the actually physical dimension that we can visit, and one is the non-physical. It's a little bit hard to explain.
But you definitely know. You definitely know when you're in those non-physical dimensions, right?
Not always. I mean, when you practice at first, you land in some location, some city, and you're not sure, is this a city in Italy or am I in a non-physical city? It depends on our awareness of how we, if we know if it's a physical place. If I go to my mom's house and it looks like my mom's house, I know, I'm on the physical plane. If I go to some, sometimes dimensions which look very, I don't know, like floating planets or like very unique landscape that we don't have here on Earth, then I know this is non-physical. But there are non-physical dimensions that they look like the 70s, like they're kind of in the bubble of their 70s and they haven't really moved on yet. And there are all kinds of different dimensions.
Thank you.
I would. I was just wondering if you have you ever planned to meet someone that's living in out of body, and like, have you ever met up together and like an experiment?
Yes, definitely have, and have tried it. Sometimes it happens spontaneously, but also during the classes, the OBE training, we would get students together or sometimes instructors together, and we would, let's say, set a time, like 3 a.m. we'll all meet in the classroom, for example. And it's not easy to do, but there have been occasions where you actually end up meeting and you can share like, oh, I remember this or that. The tricky part is more that, first of all, everybody who tries has to be able to get out at the same time, which doesn't always happen simultaneously. They might get out 10 minutes later and then nobody's there. Or they are thinking about something else and they end up in a different dimension. They might be out of body, but they don't end up in the classroom. Or they get distracted, or there's so many factors, or the awareness. Sometimes they get there, but their awareness level is still kind of more fuzzy, unconscious, they don't remember. And that's the other point, when you come back to the body, you also have to remember. So sometimes we go and we don't make the download in the morning like a dream, it's like gone. And then the other person remembers, but you were there and we had this conversation, and the other one, like, I don't remember, I'm not sure. But it does happen, it can happen. And the more you try, I mean, we've had these kind of experiments where we would try every night for like 2 weeks to meet, and then some people would meet. And I did that with one of, at the ISC, we had one of these courses, and I had one experience with another student, and she said, I saw you there, and you had this pink top, and she described what I was wearing. And I didn't remember it at the time, but she was, her description was correct. Exactly that is what I was wearing that night. So yeah, it's possible.
Aaron and everyone for this wonderful session. I am a beginner with all of this, and maybe everyone else knows the answer to this, but how is this different from lucid dreaming? Is the same preparation if you wanted to have lucid dreaming? Is this just another step further than lucid dreaming?
Yes. You could say there's dreaming, which is more unconscious. Then there's the lucid dreaming, where we there is a moment where we become aware and we're like, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm dreaming this, and then we can change the dream sometimes into another, you could say, level of awareness where we can, we're not in the dream state anymore, but we go out of body. What happens with dreaming is usually we're still close to the body and we're kind of aware of what's whatever the dreaming process of our brain. And then the helpful thing is that we have this level of awareness that we can change it. And one of the techniques is actually to use the lucid dream as a springboard for the out-of-body experience. So if you have this moment where you're like, wait a minute, I'm dreaming, instead of just changing the dream, you create this intention of you want to see the reality. And then maybe you're floating close to the ceiling, but you're still dreaming. And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm dreaming. Instead of changing the dream, you kind of say, I want to see, or you have this intention, I want to move away from my physical body. I want to go to my mom's house or to my brother, or wherever you want to go, and kind of take the focus away from the body. And then sometimes what happens is the dream images start to clear up and you actually see the ceiling or wherever you are. But as long as we're still close to the body, we end up more seeing of the dream. But it is kind of halfway, and it's a good technique to start with lucid dreaming and then move from there to the out-of-body experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for letting me ask a second question. So I've had dreams where I felt like I was flying and I was just like getting too high, and that scared me. So, and then I would wake up because I felt like, oh, I'm too far away or going up too high. Is that an out of body when you fly in your dreams?
Yes, it sounds a lot like it. They're actually out of body experiences where we fly that aren't dreams, that are out of body experiences. But because we don't know all the differences and we think everything that happens at night has to be a dream and kind of dismiss it sometimes even, or we don't even know the subtle differences. But yes, a lot of flying dreams can actually be OBEs. If the moment that you're flying, sometimes you realize, okay, this is different. This is not something I usually do, and it can give you this boost of awareness, and that might help you to not just fly around, but to create an attention and say, I want to fly specifically to so-and-so, or I want to get evidence. I want to go to that street corner and see which car is there and check it out in the morning. And I mean, I would certainly do that. I would see street signs and try to remember them when I wake up, or try to gather evidence. But those are beautiful. I mean, those are fun experiences.
Thank you, Ines, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Thank you so much. Well, I remember when I started having these kind of experiences, which were very strong when I was 20 years old, 21 to 24 years old. And I really did many experiments in this at this time, and it was wonderful. But one thing that happened to me, that I was able to witness all the process of getting out of the body from the beginning of it. And I heard many kinds of very strange sounds, which was very mind-blowing, like airplane sounds and fireworks, machine guns, and bells ringing very loudly, right, in my head. And suddenly I remember that I got a book called Projectiology by because I'm Brazilian, Dr. Valdo Vieira, and I think that in the book he spoke about this kind of sounds. Have you ever experienced this kind of sound? Because I've never met someone who had experienced this kind of sound while getting out of the body.
Yes, those are the disconnection sounds. I definitely have had these sounds, and they're different sensations, like the sensation of floating, like the buzzing sensation, or sometimes like a popping. And in Luis Minera's book that I mentioned, Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience, I believe it's on page 99, he has of a survey that he made of which sensations do people have the most, and that also includes the buzzing, the popping, the sometimes feeling like you're bloated, like you're expanding, or you're sinking into the bed. And so he has them listed in terms of how common they are, and what kinds there are. And what we think happens when we hear these buzzing sounds or these noises is that as the the astral body disconnects from the physical body, it's like an energetic, kind of like a rupture, kind of like Velcro, when you take Velcro apart and it makes a sound that sometimes, especially when you disconnect from the head, you hear that. And it's more an energetic sound. There's no noise in the room, but it's more like you hear it inside your head. And some people, when they get out quick, they hear like a pop, or there are different
I see.
or like a sensation of being plugged in or plugged out, a more technical kind of feeling. So that can happen, and it's actually good that you were able to stay aware through the whole disconnection process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louis.
Or higher dimensions, they're more thought-based. Did you experience that? Were you able to create or change form when you were in some of these other places?
Change, yes, definitely, like change form, or do things like telekinesis, do things that are not usually possible in the physical realm, or see, for example, water floating upwards instead of down, and then that usually would trigger my awareness, like, wait a minute, that doesn't usually happen. But yeah, like shrinking yourself or changing form. Yeah, we can, the astral body has the ability, it's more malleable, so you could like stretch out your arm and grab something like 20 meters away, or you could make yourself taller or smaller.
Ines, you've done a lot of work on past lives and on between lives, and I'm just wondering what you've found when you're out of body that can verify past lives or reincarnation.
I'm not sure so much of verifying. It verifies for me a lot of things that I've seen for myself, for my situation. But outside of the OBE, just doing past life regressions and past life hypnotherapy sessions, for example, regressions, or like the books of Michael Newton, Souls, what is it?
Journey of Souls.
Journey of Souls, with his research and all of that. It's just very interesting. I don't know if it always proves it, but usually it can heal phobias, it can heal, or it can help us understand conflicts in the current life. And I think it's super helpful to explore past lives. It's also something to do with caution, because it's kind of digging in the past, and you might also find things that like 100,000 years ago we weren't as evolved or spiritually evolved or kind people as we are now. Maybe we've killed someone, maybe we have been killed, or we've done some things that we might not be proud of, and we would have to be able to look at that also, those parts of ourselves. But if you're ready and if you're okay of doing that, it's sometimes interesting to explore. But it's more so also Dr. Stephen, God, now I'm losing it, who did cases of children who remember past lives.
Yes.
Dr. Stevenson.
Ian Stevenson.
That also is very fascinating, because he has a lot of evidence of specific cases where these children remember the past lives and names and all of that. And I feel like these are things that you cannot just dismiss like that. Now, in my case, when I do it, it's more subjective. I don't know, I wouldn't know how to prove it to you that I had a past life as so.
No, I was thinking more that Jürgen Zever often talks that he, on a higher level, he's actually able to see the mosaic of his past lives. and he can actually step into them and experience parts of them. I was wondering if you'd come across that at all.
I have certainly, I don't know if I've seen so much of the mosaic, but I've gotten certain answers. For example, let's say I have a connection to a certain country or a certain place. I would have OBEs where I go to that location, and while I'm there outside of the body, I remember, it's like remembering an old song, and you remember kind of who you were and the feelings that you had and what that life was about.
Lovely.
Not so much that I actually go to the past, but it's more like being in the energy or in the place. It just, I get more flooded with what happened and get more knowledge of it. Yeah, it's been more like that than actually going to the past in a sense. Does that make sense?
Sounds fascinating. Ines, thank you so much for your talk tonight. It's been absolutely fascinating, and we realize it's getting very late there, and obviously you must be tired with one thing and another. So, and thank you so much for coming on. And we please stay. We hope to have you back again, perhaps after your circumstances have settled. When's the baby due?
In 4 weeks, end of April.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, very, very exciting time for you. And we wish you, of course, we wish you all the best with that. And we hope that you'll keep in touch with us. Now, if people want to buy your book, where can they find it? Can you tell us a little bit about your book, the name, and how they can access it?
It's called Death is Not the End. And it's anywhere, Barnes and Noble. Easiest probably Amazon. That probably has everyone has Amazon or Kindle, so you can get it there, or Nook. Just type in my name, Ines Beyer, and Death is Not the End, and you can get the book as ebook or as physical book. And also on my website, which is my name, inesbeyer.com, you can get some information. And also, I wanted to put the link to Mosaic, to the classes, the out-of-body classes. But if you Google it, you can Google Mosaic Wellness and Education. It's mosaicwe.com, mosaicwe.com. And it has a calendar with the course schedule, which has the upcoming OBE fundamentals course on how to do OBE and all the details. And I'm not part of teaching it because I have so much going on right now, but they're amazing teachers and I highly recommend it.
Well, that sounds like a very good recommendation for anybody who'd like to take that further. So is there anybody else who'd like to, I'm just going to put it onto gallery, anybody who'd like to give Ines some feedback, something they'd like to say to her about the talk tonight? Just put your hand up like that. Bill Rain?
Yes, thank you very much, Ines. It's been a very interesting and enlightening evening, to say the least. So best of luck in a month's time, and we hope to see you again. Bye for now from the UK.
Thank you.